What's up, guys? Matt Byron here for PlayPicks.com, joined as a new tradition each and every week by Brett Colson here as we take a look at these NFL lines through the end of football season. We'll get into basketball stuff. We'll get into hockey stuff. We'll get into all the golf stuff and MMA stuff and all the different things like that as we move along here. But looking at week 15 of the NFL, Brett, how did week 14 treat you, and what did you think about the week overall?
I had a pretty good week. I mean, we talked about some of our leans early last week, and I hit on most of those. The one game was the Bills. I really liked the Bills last week, and they let me down. But overall, I feel like we got a good start on our analysis last week, and a lot of those picks came through.
Yeah, I agree 100% here, guys. And we're going to be referencing, as you see on your screen right now, thelines.com. Of course, that is our sister site. So be sure and head to thelines.com each and every day. Make that a part of your rotation. And while you're here, hit that subscribe button down below. Give us a thumbs up and let us know in the comments which games really stood out to you, which bets you're making this week, and which games you're staying away from for sure. We want to know all of those things as we continue to move through the end of the season into the playoffs and into the Super Bowl here. So, Brett, let's talk a little bit about some of these sports books and how they did in Week 14 before we really get going here at the lines with some of these bets and things like that. Is over at DraftKings, we talked last week about how the most important teams for them this week, the most bet teams, the Rams, Eagles, Cowboys, Chiefs, and Giants. I think this is where we are seeing that regional bias come into play here, with the Giants being one of the five most bet teams. But if you look at the Rams, Eagles, Cowboys, and Chiefs, makes a lot of sense to me, I think. I mean, of course, the Chiefs being so incredibly popular right now, Rams being incredibly popular as well. So really nothing was weird to me in this one.
Yeah, and then you had the Eagles and Cowboys in that island game. So there must have been a boatload of money bet on both of those sides for that one, and really not surprising. And then the Giants, I mean, people were just lining up to bet against Mark Sanchez, I guess, and that one paid off pretty well.
And rightfully so.
Absolutely.
If you were on that side there for the Giants, well done. Good on you. Yeah, you were the right side. The least bet teams on DraftKings Sportsbook in Week 14, the Bucks, Bengals, Cardinals, Redskins, and Vikings. Now, the Vikings is fairly interesting, I suppose, because there were a lot of people that thought the Vikings had a pretty good shot whenever they took off over there to Seattle. And to be honest with you, a call doesn't go one way or the other, or the little bit better play calling, that game could have been completely different. But interesting that they were actually the least bet team of the entire week.
Now, is that least in terms of percentage of bets, or is that least in terms of like handle?
Money.
That's surprising because
money.
that's a Monday night game.
Yeah,
that is very surprising.
Yeah, it was pretty interesting for that one for me as well. I thought that the Vikings, at least had a shot in that game. One player at DraftKings this past week hit a 12-leg college basketball parlay, $5, 11.8K, Brett. That was not you, I suppose. That was not.
It was not me.
Not you.
I love seeing this stuff, man. Like, everybody talks about parlays being the sucker bet, but they're fun. And this is why you play the parlay. It's like winning a big DFS tournament. You can turn that little amount into a 12K score. Right. Go get it.
If you're playing parlays to actually make money, then you're doing it wrong. But if you're playing parlays for fun to basically turn a tiny amount into a big amount, then I mean, it's fine. I tell people all the time, if you're playing parlays to actually make money, you're doing it wrong. But if you're playing parlays, it's like you mentioned, it's basically a lottery ticket. And if you're doing that to enjoy several games at a time and you're trying to maybe get an extra sweat, hey man, I'm fine with that. Fine with that. It's $5. It's $5. The guy just won $11,000. He's basically up for life, at this point for parlay bets. Over at FanDuel Sportsbook, Rams and the Bears were their biggest decisions. 80% of the spread bets were on the LA Rams, and 75% of the money line bets were on the Rams as well in that. So obviously they did pretty good in that game. The top NBA bet for the top NBA bet team for the entire month of November, Golden State Warriors, which I found a little bit interesting to me. Again, FanDuel Sportsbook located on the East Coast out there and things like that. I don't know. It was a little interesting to me that the Warriors were the most bet team.
Is that because the Warriors are the most televised team?
Maybe so.
It could be, or people just, I mean, it is the Warriors. I mean, people figure that you bet the Warriors are going to win, I guess. But,
yeah, right.
Yeah,
right.
it is a little surprising. Yeah.
Yeah, to see no bias there. They've also put up Masters odds already. Looking at Jordan Spieth at plus 950, Tiger Woods plus 950, Justin Thomas 1200, DJ at 1300, Rory McIlroy 1300, Brooks Koepka at 1500, and Ricky Fowler coming in at 1600. I know we are so far away, Brett, but just seeing these lines already coming up just gets me so happy. Just gets me so happy.
I love it, man. I Tiger at plus 950.
I mean, get out of here. I know. Get out of here.
Come on, man.
Get out of here.
Yeah, not touching that one.
Put a 1 in front of that, like at 1950. You know, like what are you doing?
Still, like that's I don't know about that.
Over at BetStars, 28% of the money that came in on the touchdown props in that Rams-Bears game was on Todd Gurley to score a touchdown. So over a quarter of the money that came in was on Todd Gurley to score a touchdown. Obviously, you watched that game. You know that didn't happen. 92.5% of the money was on the over in the Raiders-Steelers game. That closed around 51. That ended at 45. So that didn't go too well for the bettors as well. They did take it home, though, Brett, in the Bills-Jets game. 92% of the money was on the over 37. That one finished at 50 points. They basically got there at halftime for the over in that game. So at least the bettors did make some money back in that one.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, you see these totals, the 30. I think there's one that's 36 this week. It's like the lowest total in years. It's 2018. You'd think most of these are going to go over these low totals, right? I mean, I think that's how the casual bettor is certainly going to see it that way.
Yeah, and I think something that we can point out at this juncture is there might be bad teams playing, but like the way that you can play defense or that you can't play defense in the NFL these days is just blowing these totals out of the water. I mean, you can't touch a quarterback without getting a 15-yard penalty. You cannot even barely hand check a wide receiver and not get called for pass interference these days. And so there's just so many free chunk yard plays that even bad teams are moving the ball down the field because, hell, you throw up a bomb 35 yards down the field and just have your receiver act like he's stumbling along and you're getting pass interference calls.
Yeah, then you just plunge into the end zone or kick a field goal and you're scoring points. So, I mean, yeah, it's definitely a different league this year than it was even just last year.
Over at Sugar House, the bettors biggest win of the week was the Titans over the Jaguars. Very interesting that was the bettor's biggest win. And one bettor over there turned a $1,000 parlay into $25,000. He picked the Dolphins, Colts, Browns, Eagles, and Ravens, all to cover, not even a money line parlay, all to cover there. So he hit that 5-teamer, turned $1K into $25K. Now, I don't know if I'm going to be betting too many $1,000 5-leg parlays. I think that's
this feels like a guy who's trying to make money betting parlays.
Right.
Maybe it's just a whale that's, $1,000 is $5 to him. But yeah, that's
not a good idea. Bet. Yeah. Listen, we'll mention that some guy turned 1,000 and 25. It's a bad. Don't do that.
Don't.
It's horrible. So one of the things that we talked about last week, we talked about motivation, and I think some of that actually played into account here. I mean, we talked about the Falcons, their season being completely over or whatever. We saw Aaron Rodgers go out there and really rip those guys up. So, as we get later in the season, another thing that I think we want to point out to the people watching this video, how they handicap games, is maybe taking into account like the last 4 to 6 weeks statistics over just the season long statistics, because one of the things that can happen with a lot of these teams is, injuries happen and they might have had really good stats at the beginning of the year and those trail off towards the end, and or vice versa. A team gets healthier, a team starts to figure things out, and where they were very deficient at the beginning of the year, they're starting to pick it up at the latter half of the season. One of the things, and this is just to point, one thing out here, and I'm sure you'll have examples as well, but the Saints defense, obviously a defense that was really, really poor at the beginning of the season, and that's why we were always looking at overs in Saints games, because that high-powered offense and the bad defense. But the Saints since week 10, 13 points per game allowed. That is actually first in the entire NFL. 24 sacks. That is first in the NFL. 12 takeaways. Second in the NFL. 7 interceptions. Third in the NFL. They're holding passers to an 80.3 passer rating. That's fifth in the NFL. I mean, it's just, you look, and this defense has figured something out over the last few weeks here. And so I think this is something we can kind of pass along to the people that are betting out there. Is just, while you can certainly take in the holistic look of what they've done over the course of the entire season, I would tell you, especially if it's a game that you're going to heavily invest in, take a look at the last 4, 5, 6 weeks and see how things are starting to trend, because teams can certainly start to either trail off or figure some stuff out.
Yeah, especially well-coached teams. I mean, you mentioned the Saints, obviously a well-coached team there. Look at what's going on in Seattle. I mean, Seattle's playing as well as anybody right now. That's another team. So, yeah, we love to reference metrics like DVOA all season long, but now you got to look at some of the recent performances of these teams, especially with these well-coached teams, because they do make adjustments. Injuries are also a factor too. So, yeah, definitely an important one to look out for.
All right, let's take a look here over at thelines.com here. Of course, you will just click on this article as you get going here, and we're going to take a look at the Week 15 lines, take a look at DraftKings, BetStars, FanDuel, 888, and Sugar House here. Let's start things out with the Chargers and the Chiefs here. 3.5, 56 across the board here. There's actually a 3 at FanDuel, so 3.5, 56 here, Chargers and Chiefs. First thing to me, this total seems too high.
Yes.
This Chargers team is going to go in with most likely their third string running back. And you can say running backs don't matter, but when you have guys like Melvin Gordon and Austin Eckler that do it all, and then you're going to have to be going now to your third and fourth string running backs here, Brett, I think this total, I can see this game finishing easily in like the lower 20s here with each team.
Yeah, a lot of injuries on both sides of the ball, on offenses anyway. I mean, you've got Spencer Ware is hobbled, Tyreek Hill, you mentioned Gordon and Eckler. I don't think it's going to make that much of a difference in terms of the spread, but there's definitely, I mean, with a total this high, you're going to want your explosive players on the field. And if those guys are even hobbled, this definitely feels way too high to me.
Yeah, and again, just, Thursday, short week, right? And we've seen a lot of times, too,
Right.
short week games turn into kind of duds here. We got the Houston at the Jets here. It looks like 6s and 6.5s across the board, 41s, 41.5s here. Typically not a game I like to bet. I don't really like to bet these teams like the Texans on the road against a team like the Jets. So for me, I'll probably be out on this one. What do you think of the line and the total in this one?
Well, we talked about the Texans game last week as a trap, and it turned out to be just that. That winning streak came to a halt. This is a weird one. The Jets looked much better with Sam Darnold under center last week. 6 points is a lot to cover for a team that I still feel like is a little overinflated in the market. Definitely an early lean on the Jets here.
Cleveland heads to Denver here, and for whatever reason, we are seeing Denver come in as favorites in this thing. That is a little odd to me, I got to admit. I mean, whenever we look at all their injuries at the receiver position here, you see Cortland Sutton even banged up heading into this game. So now you're really turning to two more guys that are way, way down on the depth chart here. I mean, of course, Lindsey has been really good for them, but I don't know, man. I lean to taking the points with Cleveland early in this one. I'll certainly dig in a little bit more, but that was my first instinct in this thing.
Yeah, I don't know. This seemed like a pretty fair line to me. These teams look pretty evenly on paper, but you got a rookie quarterback going to Mile High for the first time. That's going to be tough. The look-ahead line on this last week was 6 at the Westgate, so it's moved 3 points since then. You mentioned the injuries for the Broncos, and obviously those are going to matter, but I kind of feel like this is – I mean, Denver, is there going to be motivation there? Maybe, maybe not. This is a tricky one, but I got an early lean on Denver.
Oh, boy. We might
just
have
because
to...
of the recency bias, the stock high, stock low situation. I don't know. I kind of like Denver here.
Arizona heading over to Atlanta here, and we have a situation where these are two really poor teams, and they are going to be battling it out with a 8.5 to 9 point favorite in Atlanta, 44 total in this one. I would handicap this game, Brett, if I had any urge whatsoever if I had one fiber in my body that would want to watch this game, because I typically like to watch the games where I wager. I have zero interest whatsoever in watching this game, so I will not be betting this game. I will not be playing this game. I think the first thing, I guess, and I understand how poor Arizona has been, do not get me wrong. Just the fact that Atlanta covering 9 points on just about anybody at the state of this team right now, it's pretty crazy to me.
Yeah, both these teams are terrible. So 8.5 feels like a lot to cover for a bad team. Why isn't this just 7?
Right.
This should just be 7, right?
Yeah,
I need to dig into this one a little bit more, but this feels like it should be. This feels 2 points off to me.
Yeah. Dallas heads to Indianapolis here, 47 total, 2.5, 3. There's a 3. I think that's at 8. At FanDuel. So there's a 3 at FanDuel in this one if you are looking to take Dallas in this thing. Look, I understand you get the home field advantage. I get the points for being home field advantage here. I will say that this Dallas defense, and this is one of those things we talk about if you start to kind of figure things out over the course of a season, you do not have to look past like the last few weeks. You can look basically their entire body of work. This Dallas defense has, from week 1 till last week, this team has been legit, man. This team has been really, really good. Doesn't look like there's any signs of falling off. Of course, even without Sean Lee in there, they found in Vander Esch a guy that can get sideline to sideline. I really love what I see from this Dallas defense here, and I think they could make things rough on Andrew Luck here in this game.
Yeah, they absolutely could. I love this game. You got 2 teams on the rise here late in the season, and it's not only Dallas's defense that has looked good. I mean, the Colts have been surprisingly good on defense as well. They've got some playmakers on that defensive side. So, I mean, the Colts very well could be a playoff team. They've got a lot to play for in this game. I don't imagine this one moving a whole lot. It's going to be 3.5 all week. But you're going to have the public money come in on Dallas. I don't know what to do with this one yet. I feel like this is a very fair line.
Yeah, if this were to get to 3.5, I would take Dallas all day long. If this is 2.5, where it is at a couple places right now, probably something I would look to play them in a teaser, because again, we talk about those 6-point teasers where you can then get them through the 3 and the 7 or something like that. If it lands on 3, something I won't be looking at. Detroit heading over to Buffalo. Buffalo, a favorite again this week. Yes, a
Why
favorite.
Are they doing this to us?
Again this week, 38.5 point favorite here. 2.5 is what we're looking at right now. Brett, I'm going to let you take this one. Your boys, they broke my heart last week. I had an ample amount of exposure to that Buffalo team. And it looked so good for so long, and then they just let us down.
Yeah, they just melted in the second half. I mean, as good as Darnold looked, I mean, Josh Allen kind of gave that one away. And the penalties, this is a young team. They have a lot of talent, but they are young, not a whole lot of leadership on that offensive side. The obvious concern is Allen just trying to do too much, and we saw that last week. Yeah. So, I liked them as a favorite last week. I'm just not sure. I mean, how do you click on Buffalo as a favorite 2 weeks in a row? Yeah.
Well, and after what you saw last week, like you mentioned, I mean, it is a thing where they were able to get a lead, and preserving that lead was just not, like you mentioned, young quarterback and whatever, just was not on Josh Allen's mind. Like, he is still like rolling and throwing against his body 30 yards down the field and stuff and things like that. So yeah, I'm with you. Green Bay heading to Chicago, one of those weird 5.5 point lines that we hate to see so much. 45 total in this one. I mean, if you look at what the Bears did to the Rams, your first instinct, of course, with recency bias is this line's probably off because the Bears are going to own the Packers here. But then again, we're talking about 2 teams in the division, know each other very, very well. So I probably one of these games, especially when we get this late in the season, I typically fade because there's so many factors that go into these rivalry games and whatnot that I tend to not like to try to handicap. So I usually fade these games. How do you play these sort of games?
This is one I'm probably just going to sit back and watch. The market hated the Bears all season, but we're finally starting to see some respect here after that win last week at the Rams. Maybe it over-adjusted a little bit. I mean, it is Aaron Rodgers. Yeah, he's on the road, but we saw what Rodgers did to the Bears early in the season, too, with that comeback. I feel like 6 might be a little too much here, but I don't think I would touch this game.
Miami and Minnesota, we're looking at 7s across the board here, 44.5 in this one. Of course, there is a little bit of question marks around who will be under center. Tannehill dealing with an injury there, so we could be back to Brock Osweiler
yes.
In this thing. Of course, it's kind of really hard to handicap a game not knowing who's going to be under center here. I'll take your thoughts, but really how I would play this game completely and utterly, because listen, Tannehill, for all of his flaws, Tannehill is, you look at his win-loss record, and I understand QB wins or hashtag QB wins are ridiculous, but the team wins when he's under center, and I obviously just a much, much better passer than Brock Osweiler. So for me, this game is completely going to come down to who's under center.
Yeah, absolutely, especially early in the week. If you have a guess as to what's going to happen at quarterback, now is the time to probably get in on the bet, but otherwise this is a wait and see. The Vikings just – I have zero trust in this offensive line right now. It completely limits what they're able to do with all these weapons on the offensive side of the ball. So 7, it feels like a lot. I typically love the Vikings at home, especially coming off a loss on the road. But this is a tricky spot for them.
They have been one of the most disappointing teams of this entire season on both sides of the ball, defensively and offensively. There's no doubt about it. Oakland heading to Cincinnati. Cincinnati, yes, 3-point favorites in this game.
What happened to this team?
This Cincinnati 3-point favorites, 45.5, 46s is what we're seeing right now at the various books. Boy, you want to talk about a game I have no interest in watching. This would certainly be at the very top of the list of games that I have no interest in watching. That being said, in a battle of two craptastic teams, if I were to play this game, at least always give me the points. Like I in two teams where I have literally no lean one way or the other, because you're playing at basically the bottom rung level that you could possibly play at in the NFL. I'll take points every single time. So if I were to play this game, I would certainly play Oakland.
Yeah, I don't know I mean, Oakland, I try to fade the team that looked the best last week, and the Raiders beat the Steelers last week as double-digit dogs. So, I mean, there's some recency bias baked into this one. I don't know what the hell to do with this game,
I don't know if there is. I mean, like, do you really think that the Bengals would be favored by more than 3 with Jeff Driscoll and no AJ Green? And like, I don't know. I mean, maybe they would. I don't know.
It's tough. This is a tough one to cap.
Yeah,
for sure.
This one. I would take the points pretty much always in those situations where, like, it's two horrible teams. There's no telling. Tampa Bay and Baltimore. Tampa Bay 8-point dogs on the road here. 46.5, 47 is kind of the total that we're looking at here. They're getting to the point here, Brett, where the rumblings of what they're going to do at quarterback in Baltimore is going to start getting louder and louder and louder. That is, I don't know if I could take into effect the mindset of a rookie quarterback, but constantly looking over your shoulder over and over and over again, I can only imagine is certainly not going to be great for one Lamar Jackson.
Yeah, especially when you're trying to focus on leading this team to the playoffs. I mean, they're right in the thick of it right now. That's not a situation he's going to want to be in. Is wondering what, if his job is safe.
If he throws one bad pick, is it like, okay, I'm on the bench now or something? Yeah,
absolutely. He's not going to be taking the chances that he probably should be taking against this horrible Tampa Bay defense.
Yeah, it's 8 points. Initial thought, 8 points seems like a lot to me. Tennessee heading to the New York Football Giants. The New York Football Giants are 2.5-point favorites at home over the Tennessee Titans. 43.5 is the total in this one. What a gross game. Just seriously, what a gross game this is. And I think this is the time to step aside and say, I understand. I think we all understand that the Giants likely should have taken a quarterback in last season's draft, but what Saquon Barkley has done on this field in his rookie season is something I think that we're going to look back in 5 years and be like, that was some historical stuff that was going on.
Yeah, he's tremendous. I mean, he's the best. He might be the best talent we've ever seen. I mean, he's incredible. As far as his line, I'm baffled by this because I still think Tennessee is the better team. So, and the Giants coming off that huge one last week, I think now is a good time to sell on the Giants. So take home favorites is a little aggressive for me.
Yeah, I looked at this line and I almost thought it was entered wrong or something like that. I just thought it was one of those things where for sure, I mean, Tennessee, granted, neither one of us, we were actually sitting together watching this team last week and neither one of us liked this Tennessee team, but they're a better team.
They're fine.
Yeah, they're fine. They're just a better team.
Yeah, they got some extra rest for this one too. They're not really playing for anything still, but I'm definitely leaning Tennessee here.
Washington and Jacksonville. Here's the game you were talking about at the top of the show here. 7-point favorites at home for Jacksonville. 36 is the total in 2018's NFL. That is absolutely crazy, completely and utterly bonkers, but here we are. Brett, this game, we talked about a couple of other games already that we wanted no part of. This certainly falls into that category, but weirdly, this Washington team got a little bit of spark whenever they put in a guy that had not thrown a pass in the NFL in 6 years or something into the lineup. Yeah. And I got to be honest, man, Jacksonville covering 7 points against anybody seems absurd to me. I know I'm not going to play this game because, again, we're talking about a quarterback that until last week had not thrown an NFL pass in like 5 seasons, 6 seasons, but 7 for Jacksonville just seems absurdly high against anybody. I mean, seriously, against anyone.
It should be, but it's Washington. Like every week I click on Washington and it's the same thing every week. So, I mean, yeah. I like Washington. I like the number here. 7.5 point spread on a 36 total does seem absurd to me. But this one makes me nervous. I'm not going to touch this one.
Yeah, you are getting the hook there at FanDuel. So if you do like Washington, you'd want to head over there. You are getting that hook, and who knows? I mean, it might start showing up everywhere by the time this game kicks off. Seattle heading to San Francisco. This was one of the more odd lines of the week for me. 5.5 and 6 for Seattle. 43.5, 44 is the total in this one. I understand. I totally get the fact that they're 5.5, 6 point favorites. We just saw them play so incredibly well. That said, this Seattle team, man, like beating anybody by a full touchdown, the way that they play, the way that they want to play is they want to run the football. If they could run the football 95% of the time and get away with it, they would do it. I mean, they are basically treating this like old school SEC football from like the mid 90s and stuff. And, I don't know, 6 seems a bit high to me, even against a 49ers team that, of course, lost a lot of weapons as well. But I actually think that this offense will be able to find a little bit of success against Seattle.
Well, yeah, it's Kyle Shanahan. Mm-hmm. This Seahawks team is so interesting because there's just a stark difference from what they were even just last year, where they threw the ball so much. Yeah. So it's a tough team to cap because you don't know exactly what they're going to do late in the game.
Exactly.
I guess based on what we've seen is they're just going to run the football,
and that always leaves the door open for a backdoor, right? I mean, right, like even if they're up, 10 points, 13 points, something like that. The way that they want to play is just run. They give the ball back to the other team, and it always leaves the door open for a back door. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I'll play this game, to be perfectly honest with you. But first lean is just because of the way Seattle plays, that covering 6 just is still a daunting task for a team that plays like that.
It's actually 4.5 on FanDuel right now, which is really interesting.
Oh, it has made that move, huh?
Yeah.
Ooh, boy.
Yeah, this is definitely a trappy game, considering what Seattle just did to San Francisco a few weeks ago.
So I mean, this article, guys, was updated just last night, so you can see how much this has moved for this game. As Brett mentioned, sitting here looking at 4.5 on this one right now. So yeah, this one's on the move here. Money just pouring in on Seattle. New England heads to Pittsburgh in what might be the most interesting game of the week. We have New England currently favored by 1.5. We're looking at a 52.5, 53 point total in this one. We saw Pittsburgh. Oh man. I mean, what do we even say? We saw them. I can't even say piss away a win, because at the end of the day, I mean, they just got beat. Like they just got beat. They didn't really piss anything away. They just got beat in that game. And then of course, New England, the Miami Miracle and all the things like that. And you can talk, of course, we all think it was ridiculous to have Gronk on the field. Like, they were not throwing the ball 75 yards in the air. It was just not happening. So, well,
not only that, but he can't jump anyway. So right. It's just like, why is he out there?
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. But game of the week for sure here, Brett. So the game everybody's going to be watching. I see this as pretty much how the books see it. I see this basically as a toss-up here. I feel this game could go either way. I'll tell you this, that if I'm going to get the 1.5 somewhere, again, as I've bet over the last 7-8 years of my life, like when I see these 1.5s in games where I don't have a strong inkling one way or the other, I tend to just take that 1.5 and tease it up 6 points and get it through and get the 7.5. And taking Pittsburgh at 7.5 at home seems like a pretty solid play to me, but I don't know if I really like this at 1.5 either way.
Well, that 1.5 is interesting because both of these coaches would be the type that would go for 2 to get the win at the end of the game. So, I mean, like, it could matter if you do get that 1.5.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, the Steelers have been so bad lately, but I think this is they return home this week, so maybe a good opportunity to get them at a reduced price. But man, the defense has they haven't been able to stop anybody.
No, and then of course, we still sit here and don't know the status of James Conner. He is at least supposedly progressing to where he might be able to play this week, but if that's not the case, what we did see last week is they had no semblance of a running game whatsoever and basically just abandoned it whenever they realized they weren't going to be able to run the ball. Philadelphia heading to the Rams, 53.5 across the board, 9 across the board. In this one, this Rams team, of course, last time we saw them, they were getting just absolutely shut down by the Bears. I can understand why this is where it is. I still think this is just a smash spot for the Rams. I think they destroy this Philadelphia team.
Wow.
Yeah, I think they absolutely destroy this Philadelphia team. Philadelphia team now pretty much understanding that their season is over. I mean, yeah, they could win out and have a chance to get into the playoffs, but likely not the scenario. Going all the way across the country here to play against this Rams team that should be able to do whatever they want to through the air. I mean, this is I think this is I think it's a smash spot for the Rams.
Yeah, I mean, look, the Jared Goff we saw last week is not the Jared Goff we're going to see this week. Obviously, very different conditions for him, and the Rams offense should be back to where it usually is. And this Eagles, I mean, they're going to be able to pick apart this Eagles secondary, which is probably the worst in the league right now with all the injuries they have back there. So this is definitely a spot where the Rams could put up 40 points. 9 points just seems like a lot against the Eagles, but
it does. But yeah,
the Eagles they're not good.
They're just not good. They are. Yeah. They're just not good. And to wrap things up here, New Orleans heading to Carolina. New Orleans 6.5 point favorites, 52s across the board in this one. Now, the narrative for the Saints for the longest time was they don't play well outside, that they don't do well on the road. We've seen them already come up with some huge wins already this season on the road, namely one of the big ones. They went up to Baltimore. The Ravens beat them up there. So the Saints team is, certainly not one of those teams anymore that I think you can just view as only a home team here. And we mentioned those stats, Brett, at the beginning of the broadcast, that the biggest deficiency for this Saints team was the defense. And what we've seen over the last 5 weeks is a defense that has really, really put things together, rating the best in the league in several categories. And then you have the Cam Newton factor, where even if you watch that game again, we mentioned this last week, and I mentioned it again this week. I watched that game as well. There's something not right with Cam Newton. He is definitely playing injured. And at this point, I don't know. I wonder at this point, like, why are they even playing him? If he's got something wrong with his shoulder and needs to get something done, you're out of the playoff picture. I would almost have Cam Newton go get surgery or something. I don't understand why they're even playing him right now.
No, good luck dragging him off the field. Yeah. That's the thing. Let me ask you this. I mean, as good as the Saints defense has looked over the last few weeks, the offense has been iffy. Yes. I mean, are we starting to see Drew Brees fade a little bit here?
I think what we're seeing is it's finally coming into light, the fact that they do not have a secondary receiver on that team. And what is going on here is, yeah, he still can hit Michael Thomas 11 times like he did last week, but there's going to be times where you have to complete a pass and Michael Thomas is double coverage, triple coverage, whatever it might be. And there's nobody on that team. There's just nobody he can trust. Traquan Smith, another 2 big drops last week. There's another couple of secondary receivers you've never heard of on that team. And I think that that's going to be a real problem for the Saints actually as they progress moving forward, is they only have one guy they can throw the ball to, and I think that's going to be a real big problem for this team. I guess the motivation factor here is, we talked about this last week a little bit, but for Carolina, the rumblings, your coach is going to get fired. Basically, they're going to run the whole staff out of there. The owner's not happy with things that are going on, yada, yada, yada. Does that work in your favor or does that work against you basically in a game like this?
Yeah, we don't really know what's going on in that Panthers locker room, so it's so hard to cap around that narrative. But yeah, they really have nothing to play for at this point. And like you said, they could just pull Cam if he's. I mean, they've done it already this season where they he couldn't make a throw late in a game, so they pulled him off the field. I don't see why they would leave him out there if they're even down, a couple scores in this game. So.
And Saints still trying to get that, that number one overall seed. So that's big motivation there. Yeah. Guys, as you see on the page right here, you will find this over at the lines at the bottom of this article. You can click over. You'll also, if you go to PlayPicks /bonus, you see a page like this as well. All of our sportsbook offers in one very, very nice little place here. $25 absolutely free at DraftKings. And they upped the ante, Brett, this week. I think it's for the next 3 or 4 weeks here. They will match your first bet up to $500. Basically, you're getting a free bet. So if you were to lose, that you get that money back. So like getting a free $500 bet is pretty sweet.
Yeah, absolutely. It was $200 before. It's up to $500 now for the next, like you said, 4 weeks, 5 weeks maybe. So yeah, nice little bankroll boost if you want to try out a new site. Yeah,
and of course we've got all the stuff that we've had is still the best in the business that you can get. $500 in free bets at BetStars, $500 risk-free bet at FanDuel. You get $10 absolutely free at 888. So just sign up for an account and we'll give you $10 to bet with, and of course $250 match bonus over there at Sugar House. So certainly, if you are going to be betting, just take advantage of these offers. Head to the lines, head to Play Picks, click on one of these things. We have the best offers there are in the entire business right now. Brett, as we get out of here, I think my overall deal with this week here is there's probably like 5 or 6 games I'm going to hone in on, and the rest of them might be I'll have fun watching them on TV, but I think a lot of these games will be passes for me as we sort of get to the end of the season here. I don't want to have to deal with motivation factors. I don't want to have to deal with crazy weather. I don't want to have to deal with these odd goofball lines and injuries and things. So I'll probably focus on 4 or 5 games and go from there.
So those are going to be the games where both teams have something to play for?
Something to play for, yeah. Not like a lot of crazy injury situations, not a crazy weather situation, like, stuff like that, to where it just can really throw off how you've been looking at a team or a situation for, the last, we've been doing this for 5 months now, so yeah. That's kind of how I'm looking at this, but still some fun games this week. And again, one of the better, more interesting games of the week in this whole New England Pittsburgh, because both of these teams coming off really bad losses and really, really need these wins.
Yeah, and we do have some Saturday games. We got 2 Saturday games this week, too. So you got football almost every day the rest of the week.
Yeah, awesome. Absolutely. Awesome stuff here, guys. Please click that subscribe button if you haven't already. Click that thumbs up button. And again, in the comment section, let us know where you agree with us, where you disagree with us. If there's any of these games that you are dying to play, we certainly want to hear from you guys. But appreciate you guys watching. We'll be back on Thursday for Thursday Night Football. Hey guys, thanks for checking out this video. While you're here, hit that subscribe button right down below. Make sure you never miss a video. When you get done doing that, please head to playpicks.com /bonus for the very best deposit bonus and free money offers on the internet.